Hello and welcome to the TrueSpace 6.5 Physical Simulation tutorial. In this tutorial you will learn how to quickly and easily accomplish randomizing multiple object locations. Normally this would be a time-consuming project, but using tools in TrueSpace 6.5 this can be done very fast. What we want to do is create our objects that we'll be using in our physical simulation. We'll start by placing a cube in the lower corner of our scene and scaling its size down to about 0.8 in size. That's pretty good. Next we'll use the Create Spline Array of Objects tool and place the ending about halfway through the scene. Then we'll right click on it and change the number of items to 9. We'll use our arrow keys to access the cube on the end, and we're going to change its height to about 6 meters. That looks good. And next we want to convert this into a group of objects using the Convert Array into Objects tool. And we want to split this up into individual objects using the Split Hierarchy into Polyhedra tool. We're now going to switch to a top view and zoom out so we can see all of our cubes. We're going to highlight one of these cubes. We're going to hold down the Control key and draw a box around the rest of the cubes and make them into one group. Next we'll be using the Geometry Paint tool, but before we do that we need to adjust some of its options. You select the random Z-axis rotation. You select the scale variation and change it to about 90%. You need to select the Take Random Source, Copy Glued, and change the paint distance to 2. Now activate the Geometry Paint tool and hold down the Control key and paint about 5 or 6 rows of objects. When you're done, if there's any objects intersecting, you want to go ahead and delete those, as those can screw up the simulation. That looks pretty good. Since our old cubes aren't needed anymore, I'm going to go ahead and delete those. And switch to a front view. Zoom out. And we're going to raise our new cubes up to a height of about 10 meters. It's now time to start the physics. With our new cube still highlighted, we're going to go ahead and add a rubber attribute to this. And to spread the rubber attribute to all the cubes, we'll right click and choose the Per Primitive Sim. Before starting the physical simulation, we're going to adjust its settings. We're going to activate constant time and change it to 1 to help speed up the process. Okay, let's start the simulation. Now that I've got a minute, let me explain what's happening. What we're trying to achieve here is a random height and rotation of different access points contained within a certain area. The reason for starting with cubes is to help control the object's bounce and rotation. Since the objects we want to use have a distinctive meshed shape to them, this can cause them to bounce and rotate irregularly, sending them out of the scene. Starting off with cubes keeps that from happening. Since there are varying heights and sizes to the cubes, their axis will vary in height too. Notice as the cubes bounce, they are changing their height and position according to their size. The more they bounce, the more random their individual heights become. After a few bounces, you'll notice the smaller cubes are starting to rotate. What we want to have is the majority of the cubes starting to rotate. This helps in achieving a random rotation of all the cubes. After 5 or so bounces, we'll stop the simulation. Okay, let's scroll through the keyframes and find a spot we like. Oh, that looks pretty good. Let's stop right there. Okay, let's switch to a top view and load up the objects we want to use to replace the cubes. Since the objects I want to use are all grouped together, we'll go ahead and use the split hierarchy in the polyhedra tool to break them up. And we'll highlight our cubes and break them up as well. Now we want to use the global replace tool, but before we do that we need to change some of its options. We want to use the keep target orientation and use the random placement. We'll now select one of our asteroid objects and use Control key to group them together. And we'll now activate the global replace tool and use it on any one of the cubes. Let's go ahead and delete our original asteroid objects since we don't need those anymore. And let's switch to a perspective view to see the final result. And there we have it. One instant asteroid failed.